Welcome to Time Capsule, Modern Genealogy, Legacy, and AI. I'm Barbara Beauregard, genealogist, educator, author of Here Today, Gone Tomorrow, and creator of the Time Capsule Method. Have you ever spent hours researching an ancestor, uncovering records, documents, photographs, and fascinating discoveries, only to realize that nobody in your family seems interested? Maybe you've shared a family group sheet, a pedigree chart, a stack of records, or even a detailed family history report. And the response was something like, "That's nice." Then the conversation quickly moved on. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. One of the biggest challenges family historians face isn't finding information, it's sharing it in a way that others actually want to read. Today, we're talking about how to transform genealogy research into stories that connect, engage, and inspire future generations. We'll discuss why facts alone often fail, why stories are remembered, how to find the story hidden inside your research, a simple framework for writing family stories, and practical ways to preserve those stories for future generations. So, let's get started. Let's start with an uncomfortable truth. Most people do not get excited about genealogy records. That doesn't mean they don't care about family history. It means they connect differently than researchers do. As genealogists, we get excited when we find a census record, a marriage certificate, a land deed, a military pension file, or a probate record. To us, those discoveries are thrilling, but to someone outside genealogy, they're often just pieces of paper. The challenge is that records tell us facts. People connect with stories, and if we want our research to survive beyond our own lifetime, we need to learn how to bridge that gap. Think about your favorite book, movie, television show, or family memory. What do they all have in common? Stories. Human beings are wired for stories. Stories help us remember. Stories create emotional connections. And stories help us understand people. When we hear a story, we don't simply absorb information, we experience it. And that's exactly what makes stories so powerful in family history. A story transforms an ancestor from a name into a person. Imagine I tell you, John Smith was born in 1887. He married in 1912. He had 4 children. He died in 1964. Those are facts, useful facts, but not particularly memorable. Now imagine I tell you, John Smith left home at 16 with little more than a suitcase and a dream of owning land. He worked long hours in a textile mill, saved every penny he could, and eventually purchased the small farm where he raised his family. Suddenly, John becomes real. The facts are still there, but now they have meaning. That's the difference between genealogy and storytelling. One of the biggest misconceptions is that only extraordinary ancestors deserve stories. People often say, "My family wasn't famous. They didn't do anything remarkable. They were ordinary people." But here's the truth. Ordinary people lived extraordinary lives. They survived wars, economic depressions, immigration, disease, loss, change. They built families, started businesses, raised children, made sacrifices, created traditions. Every ancestor has a story. Sometimes we simply need to learn how to see it. Many stories are hiding in plain sight. Let's take a census record. Most researchers look at names, ages, and occupations. But what else might that record tell us? Who lived nearby? How often did the family move? Did multiple generations live together? Did children leave school early to work? Were they renters or homeowners? Every record contains clues. The story often lives between the lines. One of the easiest ways to uncover stories is by asking better questions. Instead of asking, "When was she born?" ask, "What was happening in her life when she was born?" Instead of, where did he live? Ask, why did he move there? Instead of, what was his occupation? Ask, what did that work mean for his daily life? Questions create stories. Facts simply answer them. When I'm writing family stories, I often use a simple framework. Every story has a person, a challenge, a decision, a result. That's it. Person, challenge, decision, result. Let's look at an example. Person, a young immigrant arriving in America. Challenge, he doesn't speak English. Decision, he takes whatever work he can find. Result, he builds a stable life and creates opportunities for future generations. Notice how quickly that becomes a story. Here's a practical example. Suppose you discover an ancestor immigrated from Quebec to New England. That's a fact. Now let's add context. Why did they leave? What conditions existed at the time? What opportunities were available? How long was the journey? Who traveled with them? What challenges did they face? Suddenly, the record becomes a narrative, and narratives are what people remember. Details bring stories to life. Not every detail. The right details. What kind of house did they live in? What did they eat? What was their workday like? What transportation did they use? What holidays did they celebrate? These details help readers visualize the past, and visualization creates connection. Let's pause for an important caution. Storytelling is not fiction. As family historians, we must remain honest. It's perfectly acceptable to say, we don't know. It appears. The evidence suggests. Avoid creating details that aren't supported by evidence. Your goal is to bring ancestors to life without sacrificing accuracy. Good storytelling and good genealogy can coexist. Many people think they need to write a book. You don't. A meaningful story can be one page, one paragraph, even a few sentences. The goal isn't length, the goal is connection. Sometimes a single story about a family tradition or childhood memory can be more powerful than 20 pages of records. Imagine someone 50 years from now finding your research. Will they understand why those records mattered? Will they know what excited you about those discoveries? Will they understand the people behind the documents? Stories provide context. Stories create meaning. Stories transform information into legacy. Without stories, future generations inherit data. With stories, they inherit people. Many family historians spend years documenting ancestors, yet they never record their own experiences. Your story matters too. What inspired you to start researching? What discoveries surprised you? What lessons have you learned? What challenges have you overcome? Future generations will want to know. Don't leave your own chapter unwritten. The goal of preservation isn't simply collecting information, it's creating connection. Connection between generations, connection between past and present, connection between facts and meaning. That's why stories are so important. A photograph tells us what someone looked like. A record tells us what happened. A story tells us why it mattered. And that's often what future generations remember most. This week's challenge is simple. Choose one ancestor, not your entire family tree, just one person. Write a one-page story, use records, use photographs, use memories. Focus on the person, not just the facts. Then share it with a family member. You may be surprised by the response because people may not read a pedigree chart, but they'll often read a story. Family history is about more than collecting records. It's about understanding lives and helping future generations understand them too. The records we gather are important, but stories are what make those records meaningful. When we transform research into stories, we give our ancestors a voice, and we create something our families are far more likely to read, remember, and preserve. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Time Capsule, Modern Genealogy, Legacy, and AI. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider following the podcast and sharing it with a friend, family member, or fellow genealogist. And if you're interested in learning more about preserving and protecting your family history, visit ancestryseeking.com for additional resources, courses, articles, and tools. Remember, family history isn't just about discovering the past, it's about preserving it for the future. Until next time, I'm Barbara Beauregard. Keep preserving your stories, protecting your legacy, and building your family's time capsule.